Fisheries, and 2, the Honorable Robert Nesta Morgan, the Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Supporting the ministers this morning, we have Dr. Grace McLean, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. On our Zoom platform, we have Dr. Kassan Troop, the Chief Education Officer Acting, and here, right in the banquet hall, we have Mr. Stephen Shaw, the Manager of Communication and Customer Services at the National Works Agency. Lots to get through. We know that these are unusual times, and for the first time since we've had post-cabinet way back when, this is now the first time we're having it on the Zoom platform. So we welcome those from the media and certainly those watching via our stream, and to all the agency representatives from the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. May I now then invite the Minister of Education, Youth and Information, the Honourable Fayval Williams, to come and give us the Cabinet briefing notes from several weeks, and then we'll have other speakers to come. Minister.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm pleased to be here this morning for the restart of the post-cabinet briefings, which is normally scheduled to begin at 9 a.m. and to end at 10, and will be held every other week. The purpose of the post-cabinet briefing, as you know, is to give timely information on significant cabinet decisions and allow time for question and answer. This brief, as you heard, will cover the period for this new administration. This morning, we have 10 cabinet decisions, beginning with the naming of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security St. Anne Parish Office in honor of the late Shahini Robinson. Cabinet gave approval for the Ministry of Labour and Social Security St. Anne Parish Office to be named in honor of the late Minister of Labour and Social Security, the Honourable Shahini Robinson. The activities to be carried out at the newly constructed facility include, among other things, the operation of the National Insurance Scheme, as was directed by the late Member of Parliament. We turn now to the second item, the modernization of the agriculture sector program to be included in the public sector of the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. So Cabinet gave approval for the modernization of the agriculture sector program to be included in the public sector investment program, and the allocation of capital funding of US $25 million, or roughly 3.7 billion Jamaican dollars, in the government fiscal space to finance the project over a period of 5 years. And this morning we're pleased to have Minister Green from the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, who will expand on this very important program. The next item is the introduction of same-day and next-day service packages for the Registrar General's Department. Cabinet gave approval for the introduction of premium service packages and attendant fees by the Registrar General's Department, the RGD. The packages are for the processing of the same-day and next-day service for birth, death, and marriage certificates where applicable. The fee structures are $7,500 for the same-day service and $6,000 for the next day service. The proposed services are in response to the request of customers. The introduction of the proposed premium service would not replace the existing 3 service platforms that carry a maximum wait time of 4 days, 10 days, and 30 days. The next Cabinet decision relates to a project of the Jamaica Business Development. Cabinet gave approval for the Essential Oils Incubator Project to be included in the Public Sector Investment Program and the allocation of the capital funding of 50 million Jamaican dollars to finance the project. This is subject to the availability of fiscal space of the budget of the government of Jamaica. Our next item is the establishment of Steering Committee for the National College for Educational Leadership, NCEL. Cabinet has given approval for the establishment of the Steering Committee for the National College for Educational Leadership, NCEL. The committee will provide support and technical guidance for the operations of NCEL and make recommendations regarding the performance management framework of the body. The committee will serve for a period of 1 year. And for background, NCEL was established to improve the quality of leaders and managers in education and to bring greater accountability to the role of principals in schools. NCEL provides professional development of existing principals and other leaders in the school system. It trains prospective principals as well, so as to ensure they are equipped with the requisite skills needed to effectively lead our schools. The next item is the Voucher Incentive Program 2020-2021 for needy students not on PATH. Cabinet has approved the Voucher Incentive Program for students who are not on PATH. The program is seeking to provide parents or guardians of an estimated 36,000 students who were not on PATH but who are in need of assistance with a voucher towards the purchase of a tablet or laptop to enable full participation in the digital teaching and learning environment. Approximately 600,000 students in 3,639 public and private educational institutions have been affected by the interruption of face-to-face teaching and learning due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We turn now to award of contracts. Cabinet gave approval for the variation of contract in the amount of $111.8 million to M&M Jamaica Limited for the rehabilitation program for emergency works of the 10th floor and roof repairs at the Cornwall Regional Hospital in St. James. The adjusted contract amount is now $208.1 million approximately. Cabinet gave approval for the award of contract to Contracts Enterprises Limited in the amount of $60.6 million for the Middleton, Jamaica Agricultural Society Rural Feeder Road Rehabilitation in St. Thomas. Cabinet also gave approval for the award of contract to King Alarm Services Limited for security guard services at the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts. The contract is valued at $69.8 million. Cabinet also approved the award of a contract to Canadian Bank Note Company Limited for the maintenance and support of the Jamaica Passport Issuing and Control System and the procurement of 1,150,000 electronic passports or e-passports in the amount of US $16.3 million. There was also an approval for the award of contract to Northgate Public Services for the establishment of a station records management system for the Jamaica Constabulary Force in the amount of US $587,814. Cabinet also gave approval of a contract to Price Waterhouse Coopers Tax and Advisory Services in the amount of $143.0 million, excluding taxes, for the implementation of the recommendations for the rationalization of public bodies. Cabinet also gave approval of a contract to Modern Investigation and Security Company in the amount of $125.7 million for the provision of private security at the National Health Fund facilities for a period of 2 years. Cabinet gave approval for the award of contract to Chin's Equipment Rentals and Construction Company Limited in the amount of $126.5 million for the modification and upgrading of the wastewater treatment facilities at the Ebony Park Heart Academy at Tollgate in Clarendon. Cabinet gave approval for the award of contract to YP Seaton and Associates Company Limited in the amount of US $792,037.25 for the replacement of the redundant emergency power generation at eGov Jamaica Limited. Cabinet also gave approval for the award of contract for the provision of 15,000 laptops for high school students in grades 10 to 13 on the PATH program, and gave approval for the award of contract by eLearning Jamaica Limited to Royale Computers and Accessories Limited at a total cost not exceeding US $8.5 million, including GCT. Turning now to item 8, ratification of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. Cabinet ratified the approval given by the Prime Minister for Jamaica's ratification of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. Jamaica participated in the first and second substantive sessions of the United Nations Conference to negotiate a legally binding instrument to prohibit nuclear weapons leading towards their total elimination. Jamaica had voted to support the adoption of the treaty in July 2017 and was among the first CARICOM member states to sign the treaty on December 8, 2017. The treaty stipulated that 50 ratifications were required for it to enter into force. As of September 30, 2020, 46 countries had submitted their instruments of ratification to the depository. Our next item is the divestment of Silver Sands Estates Limited. Cabinet gave approval for the divestment of the assets of Silver Sands Estates Limited in Trelawney. This will be done by the transfer of the real estate assets of Silver Sands Estates Limited to the Silver Sands Cottage Owners Association. This includes those properties which form part of the common areas in the Silver Sands development, subject to the review of the Attorney General's chambers. The divestment also includes sale of the underdeveloped lots and villas on the open market, and the establishment of a formula or scheme which would reserve properties to be sold to public servants. This transaction also includes leasing of the clubhouse, marine park, and jetty to Silver Sands Cottage Owners Association, and the transfer of the shares of Harmonization Limited in Silver Sands Estate Limited to Silver Sands Cottage Owners Association at the expiration of the proposed lease of the clubhouse and the sale of all the remaining assets of Silver Sands Estates Limited. In the event that the proposed lease does not materialize, then the clubhouse, together with the remaining assets, would be offered for sale on the open market or transferred to Harmonization Limited, a government-owned company. And finally, final item, approval for sale of land owned by the NWC at Colbeck Plantation in St. Catherine to the National Housing Trust. The Cabinet gave approval for the sale of 20.03 hectares or 49.5 acres of land owned by the National Water Commission to the National Housing Trust in the amount of $140 million. The sale of the land would complement lands already owned by the NHT for a housing development. And actually, there are 11 items. This is a final item. Ratification of Cabinet decision on the 2020-2021 revenue measure of an income tax credit to certain bodies corporate. Cabinet ratified a decision in March of this year which approved the revenue measures for the 2020-2021 financial year, including the implementation of an income tax credit of $375 for companies with revenues or sales equal to or less than $500 million annually, with effect from the year of assessment, which is 2020. This special income tax credit must be utilized in the current year. There are between 8,000 to 10,000 registered small businesses in Jamaica for whom this credit would probably be applicable. And that concludes the items that we have this morning, the cabinet decisions. And I will turn back over now to our moderator. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Minister. In keeping with the COVID-19 protocols, of course, we do sanitize all the microphones and all other items to be used. We now invite Minister Floyd Green, the Honourable Floyd Green, the Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, for an update, and especially too, given the context of the recent heavy rains. Minister.
Thank you very much, Naomi. Minister of Education, Youth and Information, Minister Favour Williams, State Minister Robert Nestor Morgan, other specially invited guests, Mr. Stephen Shaw, PS Grace McLean, those of you who are joining us on Zoom, members of the media. I'm very, very happy to be here, and let me start by saying Happy Eat Jamaica Day. If you don't know, today is Eat Jamaica Day, and I hope you think about that in every meal that you consume today. I'm going to speak in a little bit about our modernization of the agricultural sector program. Then I'll tell you a little bit about our emergency relief program for farmers affected by the recent rainfall, and we will speak about the state of our food supply chain for the Christmas period. And I guarantee you I'll try to do this as quickly as possible. As you would have heard from Minister Williams, we're very happy that Cabinet has approved the modernization of the agricultural sector program, which is a 5-year project that will be executed by the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries and will be financed by a US $25 million loan from the Inter-American Development Bank. As the name suggests, this project is really going to be the pillar upon which we stand in the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries and our drive to modernize agriculture. The objective is to increase agricultural productivity and to increase income to our beneficiary smallholder farmers. We're going to be focusing a lot on agricultural health and food safety and how can we strengthen and develop local and export market linkages. The project is structured around two main components. Component one will focus on agricultural health and food safety, and component two will focus on public agricultural infrastructure and services for public-private partnerships. We are looking through our modernization program to establish an effective funding mechanism which is aimed at supporting agricultural value chains and in particular the inclusion of small and medium-sized enterprises to the overall production and commercial supply chains. We're going to be working in partnership with established anchor firms with the ultimate goal to improve the income of our small farmers and improve information in relation to market access, improve productivity, improve storage, and improve commercial capacities. This is under a framework of public-private partnership with the Government of Jamaica providing non-reimbursable funding under a cost modernization of the agricultural sector program and beneficiary SMEs and anchor firms through counterpart funding. The program will run for 5 years, 60 months. And just to tell you some of the direct outcomes that we expect at the end of the program. We're definitely going to strengthen our plant pest surveillance unit. We are seeing more plant pests, and we're looking to strengthen the unit. We're going to be looking at our plant protection unit of the Research and Development Division. We're going to be providing more equipment, providing more staff. We're going to be looking at our plant health information system that will be developed. We're going to renovate our export complexes at the Montego Bay and the Kingston Airport. Again, this is tied to ensuring that we fulfill the requirements for our produce to leave Jamaica. We're going to be doing crop surveys. We're going to be working with farmers to look at integrated pest management. We're going to train our farmers in pesticide safety and how can they use ICT in dispensing their pesticides. We're also going to be strengthening our veterinary service on equipping our veterinary diagnostic lab and our residue lab. We're going to be looking outside of Kingston. We're going to be strengthening our offices in Manchester, Clarendon, St. Elizabeth, and Falmouth. We're also going to be training our livestock farmers. We want to ensure that they are GAP certified. We're going to be putting in place an early detection and early response mechanism, especially in relation to weather events. And we're going to be studying the agricultural health system. Importantly, one of the main takeaways from our modernization program is a AgriParks master plan and a national public-private partnership strategy will be developed for our agricultural sector. We're going to be looking how can we finance our agricultural supply chains through a competitive mechanism, and how can we ensure that we construct the public infrastructure needed through public-private partnership. Finally, we'll be looking at climate-smart matching grants and programs that are helping our farmers to be climate resilient. I think it's important to note that special allocations will be made out of this modernization program for our youth and for our women. It's very, very important that we incorporate our youth and our women in the modernization of agriculture. And I said finally already, but finally, we will be monitoring and evaluating the impact of this program. We will be doing an environmental and social analysis, and as we have said, we'll be working with the IDB on this project. So very, very excited that we will have the funding to really see to the modernization of our agricultural sector. The other two issues you would have heard through my presentation in Parliament, what has happened in relation to our farmers and the recent bouts of rain. Some 14,000 farmers have been impacted. The total economic loss is about $2.5 billion, affecting about 3,000 hectares of agricultural land. We have provided a response. Our initial response is $646.9 million, and that is in relation of emergency relief. We have looked at our budget. We have reallocated some of our funds. And just to give you a breakdown in relation to the emergency relief that we will be providing, we are providing about $200 million to treat with our infrastructure. So we've identified 17 farm roads that we will be doing across the most hard-hit parishes that need assessment for. Said we have damage that has been done by the recent rains. I think the good news is that in relation to our tubers, in relation to our meat products, we do have sufficient supply. In fact, this Christmas we expect to have the largest amount of production of chicken that our country has ever seen. In fact, both our producers, our major producers, are higher than pre-COVID levels in relation to production. We expect to see good supply of tubers, so our yams, our sweet potatoes, significant damage to our tomato crops, our cucumbers, lettuce, cabbage, and we do expect that you will see a break in the supply chain in relation to those crops. As such, what we have been doing, we've asked RADA to continue their assessment. We will be looking to see how bad the break in supply chain is and if there needs to be any alternative methodology to ensure that we do have sufficient supplies for Christmas. Agriculture is willing to zucchini and cauliflower to see if there needs to be any supplemental supply to ensure that we have sufficient supply for the Christmas. Thank you. I look forward to any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Minister, for that comprehensive presentation concerning what's happening in the Ministry of Agriculture. And certainly giving an update concerning supply for the festive season. Service at the National Works Agency to make a brief presentation. As you know, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister has announced a $1 billion project to deal with road patching, beautification, and drain cleaning. This will be administered through the National Works Agency, and so Mr. Shaw will update us.
Thank you, Chair. Ministers, colleagues, those in persons in Cyberland, good morning. As we all know, the country did suffer significant impact as a result of the latest weather event, and up to a couple of weeks ago, we had about 5 corridors that were still impassable. We have managed to reduce that number to about 3 at this time. We have 1 in Clarendon, and we have 2 in St. Andrew. The 2 in St. Andrew, the chief one would be Gordon Town Road, and that one persons would have been calling us at the agency. They would have been calling the Member of Parliament and literally looking to the government for a fix. Our response has been twofold. We maintain that persons ought to use the corridor through Silver Hill Gap, section Newcastle. That's the alternative, the official alternative, because we have closed Gordon Town Road. We have seen where persons are using it. It is extremely dangerous. I saw a video where someone was attempting to cross that small bit of road, and it was raining and flood waters coming down, and the person got so scared they turned back. They ran back. They didn't even turn around and walk. The person was obviously scared. So that's the nature of the area. While saying that we're working on the Savage Pen Road, now that comes with its own set of challenges. We have had to be doing what we don't usually do when we're doing these kinds of activities, what is referred to as double handling. The material that we're using to first, as a precursor to the base being laid, we're using shingle, because what is there now is just earth, just dirt. So we're shingling the area, and after that, the intention is to put base material and then a final surface. We've had to be doing double handling with the shingle because of the topography. It's quite hilly, it's very steep. I myself drove along that road last week. It's not for the faint of heart. Other persons I saw there driving it, including persons going to the market. So it is drivable. It's not that it isn't. But it will certainly, it's not going to be a corridor that we expect Minister Green, a market truck, to be using. So we're not going to be saying that persons coming from the hills of Mavis Bank and so on, laden with goods to the market, they should use it. No, I would suggest that they continue using the road from Silver Hill Gap section. We know it is long, but it is a safer road. While doing that, we are also working to have the permanent works done at Gordon Town. Our engineers have been hard at work. I did say publicly that we're looking at two options. One, to put in a retaining structure, and the Prime Minister has also asked us to look at the possibility of realigning that section of road. And so the two things are happening at the same time. As to which one will be implemented, I am not sure at this moment. It is for us to look at the numbers, and the government certainly will make the appropriate decision as to whether we will go with realigning that section of road or to build a retaining structure. I'm told that a retaining structure can be built there. So it is not that the area is deep, it's about 80 meters down, but it can be done based on what the engineers have said. So as it relates to our response, we know that there are many roads out there that are in need of some attention. The Prime Minister did mention the 1 billion program. Outside of that, we do have our quarterly routine maintenance patching activities, and we are also moving forward with that. So there are going to be kind of two bites of the cherry, if I may refer to it as that. We have our third quarter routine patching activities, and persons in Kingston, for example, who may see patching activities taking place, that's part of the third quarter patching works. It's not the program that the Prime Minister announced last week kicking in just yet, so that is to come. So we're going to be running both things as we push to try and make persons a bit more comfortable when they are moving around the island. And we're aware, I mean, the Bull Bay Main Road, the road from Porus leading to Denby roundabout, many others are out there that are in need of attention, and we are committing to give attention to these corridors. Spanish Town Road, I get calls regularly. Up to last night, somebody called me late in the evening complaining about it. We are aware, and we are working to have these things treated with as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen Shaw of the National Works Agency, as a resource person here at our post-cabinet media briefing, just giving us an update in terms of the clearing of roadways and certainly patching activities. May I now re-invite the ministers, along with the State Minister, Robert Nesta Morgan, and Mr. Shaw, to just stand at the front as we field questions from members of the media. And so, ladies and gentlemen of the media, it's now your time to indicate whether or not you are having questions for us. We ask, though, that you do turn on your camera as well as, or put a photograph up so we are able to see as well, because this is being streamed live. And so we ask that you now indicate whether or not you have questions. I believe I see Mr. Paul Clark from the Gleaner Company, who has a question. Paul, may I ask that you turn on your camera or put a picture up, and certainly unmute your mic, and then we'll be able to speak with you. I also recognize as the next person to ask a question, Mr. Keys, Javon Keys from RJR. Paul? All right, while Paul gets in place, let me just go over then to Javon Keys, who has a question. Javon, go ahead, please.
Good morning, everyone. So I have 3 questions for Minister Williams. My first question is with regards to the OYOD program and the website. Now, there have been complaints about persons who don't have email address not being able to complete this form. Would the ministry be willing to consider then changing how the website operates to ensure that persons without email addresses may still be able to complete the forms? My second question is regarding PEP. Now, the diagnostic tests would have been conducted a few weeks ago, and that would have determined, based on what you would have said in Parliament a few weeks ago, the way forward for PEP. What are the assessments showing, and has the ministry determined the direction for the PEP examinations as to how it will be administered and when it will be administered? And finally, you would have also indicated, Minister, that the tablets, not all 40,000 tablets for the PATH students would have been in the island last month. Could you give us an update as to the status of that? Have all the tablets been received? And if not, when will all of them be in the island?
Okay, thank you very much for those questions. I'll start with your last one in terms of the tablets. E-learning, which is the entity that's responsible for the entire process of procurement and delivering these tablets, would have delivered 34,000 tablets. They still await 6,000. As soon as those are received, then we will begin that distribution as well. We expect that we will be receiving those before the end of this year. With regards to the OYOD, Own Your Own Device program, your question with regards to the email. The email is a requirement because we will be issuing the e-vouchers to the email, and that is what the parent or guardian would be able to take to the selected vendor in order to complete the transaction. What we have said is for those, an email is easy to create, but for those persons who do not have one, we're suggesting that you use a family member, use the email of a family member, and you'll be able to access the incentive that way as well, because it will be validated when you go to the vendor. And then for the questions on the diagnostic test and PEP, I'm going to ask our Chief Education Officer, who is online, if she could come on and take that question or those sets of questions.
Good morning, Minister. Good morning, team members. Good morning to our listeners on Zoom. Thank you, Minister, for that intervention as it relates to the other questions. As it relates to PEP, Mr. Javon Keys, we have done the preliminary analysis of the diagnostic tests. We have also presented the information to our minister. We have the next level of activity as it relates to the PEP is to have the National Committee Oversight PEP Committee meet tomorrow. That meeting is set for 10 o'clock tomorrow with the committee, which consists of a number of key stakeholders. We will present the outcome of the diagnostic test and the proposal for PEP going forward for further deliberation with the key stakeholders, and then our minister will ratify, and that information will be shared with our schools and parents. So we are very advanced in the process, and a proposal has been developed, has been reviewed already by our minister and permanent secretary, and we are now in the stage of discussion with the stakeholders and the National PEP Supervisory Committee, and then post that exercise, the complete information will be shared with our stakeholders. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you so much, Dr. Troop, and thank you, Minister. I think we've covered all of Mr. Key's questions. Then let's now go to Ms. Kimone Francis from the Jamaica Observer. Kimone?
Morning. Question is, is there an estimate for the restoration of Gordon Town Main Road?
Sorry. As I said earlier, we are still looking at the two different iterations, one for a retaining wall and the other for realignment. We have not yet reached the stage where we have developed what is referred to as a bill of quantities, and it is the BQ for short that will then inform us as to what the likely cost will be. I say likely cost because it is highly likely that we will go the route of a tender process, and we may come up with an indicative cost, but when it is tendered, the cost could be lower or higher, depending on how the bids go.
Thank you so much. I do have, I'm not sure, there are some persons who may be having an issue from the media with Zoom. I do have a question, Minister, for Minister Green concerning food security for the Christmas season. You spoke, Minister, the editor is asking, you spoke primarily to food crops, those which are planted. What about livestock, poultry?
So our poultry industry is in good stead for the Christmas season. As I would have said, our two main producers are producing above what they produced last year. So we definitely will be food secure in relation to poultry meat. We do have sufficient supply of pork pigs, and we do have good supply of another popular thing at Christmas time, which is goat meat. So in relation to livestock, we are in good stead, and in relation to tubers, we're in good stead. Our only challenges are really around our vegetable lines.
Thank you once again, Minister. Again, I think we had just a slight delay this morning because of some internet trouble, so I'll appease those editors who are not quite signed on to Zoom. I have another one. This is from the Nationwide editor, who's asking, it's clear the government attempted a delicate balancing act regarding the restrictions for the holidays, but how will the authorities prevent mass gatherings during Grand Market in particular? I believe Minister Morgan will be able to at least speak to some of the considerations and again appeal to persons to follow the protocols for the holiday season concerning COVID-19. Minister Morgan.
Good morning, everyone. I think we first have to acknowledge that COVID is a crisis that impacts every single Jamaican. And the actions of every single Jamaican will determine whether we are successful or whether we'll have more challenges come January. We would have been privileged to listen to both the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, who agreed with the protocols and procedures and compromises that were made. And we also got the benefit of the opinion of the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association head, Mr. Pandoy, who also agreed. The fact of the matter is the government will not be able to police everybody's home. But we have to acknowledge the reality that if we do not ascribe to the protocols, the risks are very significant. The risk in terms of stresses on our health system, the risk in terms of our children not being able to return to school in January for more face-to-face, the risk in terms of more damage to the economy by, we saw the CDC's ranking of Jamaica as number 4. To improve those rankings, we all have to come together to ensure that we have less incidents of COVID and we have less persons, especially the elderly, who are vulnerable. So the police and the authorities will be doing their jobs. They will be out on the streets in their numbers, seeking to ensure that we are safe. But most importantly, it is our responsibility as individual Jamaicans to police ourselves, to police our families, to advise those overseas, if you do not need to come home, stay where you are. And if you do come home, as the Prime Minister said, go to the elegant corridor and send a letter and send some tablets.
Thank you so much, Minister Morgan, for your intervention and certainly encouraging persons to police themselves. Our next question, again, Paul Clark had indicated he had a question. He's having some issues on his side with the internet, so he sent them in. He said, my question is for Minister Favour Williams regarding the plans for the opening of schools in 2021. What are the plans going forward in light of the pilot face-to-face program? And his second question is, how many more schools is the ministry looking to add to the initial 17 from the first pilot?
Okay, so Friday would have been the end of the 2-week pilot for the 17 schools. We are in the process of looking at the information that would have been gathered by our observers of those 17 schools. You will recall that last Tuesday in Parliament, I presented an interim report. Those are some of the same factors that we'd continue to observe during the final week. We are finalizing that report, and it's going to guide us going forward. One of the major issues that surfaced and that we have to pay attention to is how we handle those cases that present themselves of students having symptoms. And we have to ensure that the schools are sufficiently resourced, not just in terms of the information, but also the physical setting to be able to manage that situation. So that was one of the big learning coming out of the observation of the pilot. We are looking at other schools, and we will continue to do the phased reopening of schools. We have to depend on the inspection, the physical inspections from the Ministry of Health. They have been doing a good job so far. We have, I think, almost 200 schools, 109 schools that have been inspected and rated satisfactory. And so we are looking at that list, speaking with the principals, because what we also found during those 2 weeks is that it takes time for the schools to get back online, despite the fact that principals and teachers and some of the support staff are still on the plant operating. You have to get the word out to parents. Parents themselves have to get prepared. Teachers who are at home and teaching from home using the online system, some have their children with them and they would have to seek help and support for those children. So it is a significant logistics job that requires some time, so it isn't as if we can just get up and say to the 109 schools, come back in. So we are in touch with the principals to work out how we continue to bring schools back face to face.
Final question from Paul, Minister, and of course this is the final question then for the entire briefing as we seek to wrap. His final question is, will the phased reopening, it's really a follow-up, will the phased reopening then be on a county by county or parish by parish level?
The phased reopening will continue to use the risk-based assessment, ensuring that the school's plant is in proper order for students to come back. We will continue to look at all the variables that we used in the initial pilot, which is community-based. We look at distance students travel. We look at to ensure that there is adequate water, adequate internet, and so on. So we'll continue to use those variables. And as you would have noticed, with the 17 schools, they were spread across 9 parishes. And so we'll continue to use that same methodology because it has given us useful information to use and refine the process as we go along.
Thank you so much, Minister, and may I then thank you and the other ministers who have been here providing critical information to members of the media and, of course, members of the public. May I thank those present here at the Office of the Prime Minister, the banquet hall, really, and those on the Zoom platform from the Ministry's agencies, and, of course, members of the media for joining us for post-cabinet media briefing. Our next media briefing is week after next, so we have committed to doing this every other week so that you remain informed about cabinet decision. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a very good day.